for being here on time. I appreciate that. Any of you who are listening to the recording of this in the future and couldn't make it, then of course feel free to share this recording with your network so that everyone can see just what it is we're trying to get across about Prezi here today. So my name is Russell. I'll introduce myself properly in just a second, but our subject that we're going to talk about today is why should I use Prezi? It's a question that I get asked an awful lot, being one of Prezi's official experts. So hopefully I'm going to shed some light on what I think are the top 3 reasons for every presenter to be using Prezi today and to move away from the very slide-by-slide way of presenting that you might be used to in PowerPoint or Keynote or something like that. Now, before we get started, I just want to point out on the screen at the moment, you should see our Twitter details. So you can follow myself at the presenter, which is presenter with a Z, and the hashtag that we're using for these Prezi webinars is quite simply just hashtag Prezi webinar. So if at any time throughout the session you'd like to say something, something that the rest of the world can see, then please feel free to tweet using that hashtag. Copy me in with @thepresenter, and also copy Prezi in as well. They're just @Prezi. That will just mean that even once the session is finished, we can actually carry on with a really good conversation about Prezi, and of course about why you should be using it. So let's move on and just introduce myself a little bit more, just so you know who is talking at you right now. So my name is Russell. I'm one of Prezi's official experts, which means I'm one of a very small group of people from across the world. I think there are probably only about 20 or maybe 25 of us at the moment who are actually contracted by Prezi to deliver Prezi training, bespoke Prezi design, and of course make sure that Prezi is all we do in our day-to-day jobs. So the business that I run, The Presenter Limited, offers just that. We offer bespoke Prezi design, Prezi training, which we deliver online through webinar systems like this, but also in person, on-site, within your business, should you want your teams to be trained on Prezi. I've also written books about Prezi, a couple of which I will actually send the links through to all of you once the session is over. So they definitely make for a very interesting read. So you are in very good hands. And more than anything, though, I'm just generally a real lover of good presentations. I used PowerPoint for years and years as a trainer at the very start of my profession there. And I found really quickly that you couldn't tell a very good story with PowerPoint. So as soon as I saw Prezi, of course I fell in love with it instantly, and since then I've been on a bit of a personal mission, and that's to really help people in business be more creative with their presentations and with the sort of day-to-day way that they communicate to their own customers, to colleagues within their business, managers and leadership and things like that. And that's one of the reasons I love Prezi so much. It genuinely does help you become much more creative. Even if you don't feel like you're a creative person, Prezi can really bring that side out of you. So there you go. Straight away, there's one reason why you should use Prezi. Now, just a quick bit of information about Prezi itself. Just before Christmas, Prezi announced that it has just reached 50 million users. So Prezi has only been around since 2009, and to already have 50 million users under its belt is no mean feat. So last year, particularly here in the UK, I used to hear a lot of people saying, oh, Prezi will probably fade out eventually and everyone will run back to the safety net of PowerPoint. Well, that's kind of true for some Prezi users, I suppose, but right now Prezi shows no signs of going anywhere. So now is really, really a good time to invest in learning Prezi and actually, reinvent the way that you present. And again, Prezi is going to help you do that. Prezi is also, as well as getting 50 million users, it's also just gained $57 million worth of investment. So there's going to be an awful lot of really good stuff coming into Prezi in terms of new features and upgrades and all of that kind of good stuff that the Prezi community is really ready for. So anyone coming on board with Prezi right now, you are going to have a great experience with the software as it is today, but in the next 12 months, it's only going to get better. So again, another reason for why you should use Prezi. So we're going to talk about this question today. Like I said, I get asked this an awful lot when I'm out at networking events and things like this. Before we tackle that question though, I just want to give you a little bit of kind of housekeeping, if you like. So today's session is going to last around about 45 minutes. I'm going to present to you for the next 30 minutes or so, of course using Prezi. It would be a bit of a cop-out if I had PowerPoint slides in front of me right now. So once that presentation is done, we're going to try to allow at least 15 minutes for questions. Some of you have already sent questions in, which is great, but I would really encourage you to use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screens at the moment for any questions that you want to ask. One of my colleagues here is going to be keeping an eye on those questions as they come in. We'll try and highlight 3, maybe 4 of the best questions, and I'll answer those at the very end. Any questions that we don't get time for, I will answer those either online via Twitter, or we'll put together some kind of formal document to send out to all of you that has those answers on it. One of the things we're also going to do is provide everyone with a recording of this session. So what you're seeing and hearing right now is being recorded as we speak. So that will probably be available just as a YouTube link, probably by next Tuesday or thereabouts. As soon as we've got that ready, of course, we will email you out the link. And I'd really appreciate it if you could share that recording with your own networks. And again, we're at the presenter. And also make sure you mention Prezi in there and hashtag Prezi webinar. We want to get some really good conversation going here because I think Prezi's at the right stage now to really start building a strong community of users, and hopefully I can convert some of you on this call today into being really strong Prezi ambassadors. That's the idea anyway of this webinar. So let's go back to this question, why should I use Prezi? Well, I know the answer to that, so I suppose why should you use Prezi? These are some of the things that I hear all the time. So we'll go through some of these in just a second, but I have also had a few responses in from a few of you as to why you think you should be using Prezi, so I'll cover those off in a second as well. So the very first thing I hear, quite a lot actually, is that I should use Prezi because the zooming in and out is so cool. And I suppose I would slightly agree with that. It is quite a cool feature of Prezi, but making that the only reason to use Prezi is probably a big mistake, and I'll explain why as we go through. Some people also say they like the fact that they can spin the whole screen around and they can, rotate the canvas that the audience is seeing as much as they like. Again, that can be a nice feature of Prezi, but just moving over to Prezi for that reason could be a big mistake. Also, a lot of people say, do you know what, I love using Prezi because it's not PowerPoint. And I think that really says a lot. We are all a bit fed up with just looking at PowerPoint slides all the time, and it's a bit unfair because it's not PowerPoint's fault. It's the millions and millions of people who use it in a really bad way that give it a bit of a bad reputation. But it is quite a refreshing change when your audience realizes that they're not looking at PowerPoint slides for a change and they can actually then engage with something new. So those are some things I hear. There's probably a lot more I hear as well. We don't have time to go into all of those. These are some of the things that you actually responded to a little questionnaire I sent out about a week ago. So I haven't put any names on here, but someone in the group said that they'd like to use Prezi to make an impression on their clients when doing workshops or other training programs, and they're looking for a new way to show and share their vision or their subject. Now that's a really important point. Whenever you have a vision, my guess is that you don't get that vision running through your head in PowerPoint slides. You get that vision as a one big solid visual, and Prezi really helps you communicate that nicely. So this is a really good reason for wanting to move over to Prezi. Another reason is that someone else is looking for new and exciting ways to present, but they've also put when the internet is available at the time of presentation. Now, I wanted to bring this up just as a little aside here, really. I want to make sure everyone is aware that you don't actually need an internet connection to use Prezi and to actually present from the Prezi software. If you go onto the Prezi website, have a look at the Enjoy or the Pro licenses, and in fact, even on the free license, you can download what's known as a portable Prezi, and that enables you to take your presentation completely offline and present it anywhere at all. You don't need the internet, you don't need the Prezi software, you can run that on a Mac or a PC. So they've got the first bit right, it is new and exciting, but you don't have to rely on an internet connection all the time. The third thing that someone mentioned is that they want to be ahead of the curve. They want to make sure their presentations are more interesting and visually appealing. Lots and lots of customers come to us right now because they too want to be ahead of the curve, and 50 million users is an awful lot of people, but I guarantee you if you use Prezi at an event or a conference, you're probably going to be one of the only people doing that. 90% of people at that event are probably going to still be using PowerPoint or a very slide-based way to present. So now is definitely a good time to stay ahead of the curve and get involved with Prezi, and hopefully use it in the right way. So even if you do come up against someone else using Prezi, they'll be doing it quite badly. And that's something I want to talk about quickly. Those points I mentioned about using Prezi because of its zooming and rotating the canvas around, that's actually what we call death by Prezi. So you've all heard of death by PowerPoint that puts people to sleep. Death by Prezi can actually make people physically throw up. Although I've never heard of any stories of someone actually doing that, we have heard of lots of stories of people feeling very motion sick when looking at a Prezi presentation. And the reason is that the presenter has approached it for those reasons I brought up on screen. They think that the zooming in and the spinning around is what Prezi's all about, and they've got it very, very wrong. So if that's you at the moment, then just pay attention to the next 20 minutes or so, because I'm hopefully going to enlighten you a little bit. Death by Prezi we will talk about on our very next webinar, so that's on February the 27th at exactly the same time. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. You can also just Google Death by Prezi and you will see a YouTube clip of myself talking about that very subject. So hopefully we'll see you there on the next webinar anyway, but do watch out for that. The zooming in and the rotating is not why you should be using Prezi at all. Okay, so let's zoom out here to our big picture. So we can see a little guy presenting on the stage there in front of an audience, much as I'm doing right now to you, just in a virtual sense. And no matter what type of presentation you have, and no matter what your subject matter is, you're going to have objectives, or at least you should have objectives, and they'll be different for all of us. So some of you that I'm talking to right now might want to educate your audiences. Maybe you're a training consultant or something like that. Some of you might want to persuade an audience, so maybe you're a salesperson, for instance. Some of you might want to inspire your audience, could be you're a motivational speaker. Some of you might just want to close a very important business deal. So again, maybe you're a sales director or sales manager or something like that. Now, no matter what our objectives are for our own particular presentations, there is one objective that we all share. And that objective should be that everything we present helps people remember. Okay, so no matter what you're presenting about, and no matter what your individual objective is, we should all have the same objective, and that's to help our audience remember what they're seeing, what we're showing them. Otherwise, what's the point? There's no point putting the visuals together, spending days and days doing that, standing up on stage and getting all nervous like I do every time I present. There's no point doing any of that if what we're doing isn't going to help people remember. So that should be our overall objective for every single presentation. Now I'm just going to zoom in here to one of these little areas. A fact that I found out really fairly recently, I actually found this out after watching a video of the Prezi CEO talking on their website. We actually knew about penicillin for around 50 years before we started to use it to treat people. Now that's pretty crazy, isn't it? So you think about that, 50 years, how many lives could we have saved if we actually realized that penicillin could be used to treat people? It's probably in the hundreds of thousands, I would imagine. And that's just such a shame when you hear things like that. Why wasn't that information shared, and why wasn't it shared in a really engaging and memorable and inspiring way to make people want to start using it to treat others? So, we really dropped the ball there. We didn't make those connections, and that's something that I think happens a lot in just every day-to-day presentations that we see. We've got really important messages, really important things that we need to inspire or close that deal or educate, but we just fail in getting those across because we're relying too much on the software doing stuff for us, and people don't think in a slide-by-slide way. So some other things that hopefully you know already. If you are giving just an oral presentation, so if there was no Prezi on the screen right now, most of you would probably only remember 10% of what I'm saying once we're done. If I just sent you this presentation and asked you to click through it, you'd probably only remember 30%. But a really good visual presentation with a really good presenter will help your audience remember around 80% of what they see. So there's a real message there. One thing is, of course, Prezi is great at helping you get more visual and make a more impact, but you still have to be a great presenter. So don't forget that, and I really try to make everyone aware of that. You can master Prezi until you're blue in the face, but if you're absolutely rubbish at presenting yourself, then the amount that your audience remembers is going to seriously be lowered. Okay, so do bear that in mind. Prezi's not going to do the presenting for you. You still have to do that part. A really interesting thing as well is that people actually remember visual content 60,000 times faster than they would, say, a series of bullet point text on a slide. So when we show someone some really engaging visuals, everything happens really quickly. They see those visuals, they take them in, the brain recognizes what it's seeing, and it stores that 60,000 times quicker than if you had to read text on a slide. And I hate to say it, but every time I get sent a PowerPoint presentation from our customers, I'm not going to mention any names, there's just far too much text on those slides. No one's ever going to remember a single thing, and those are normally PowerPoint slides that have been used for years and years until they've decided to come on board with Prezi. So I just thought it was important to raise those points first of all. Now some of you might be thinking off the back of that, well, I understand what makes a good visual presentation, and maybe you do have PowerPoint slides that are very visual and use hardly any text and no bullet points at all. So you might be asking the question, why do people still not remember what I'm showing them? Well, there's another really simple answer for that, and it's for the reason that we just don't think in PowerPoint slides. Our brains don't take in information in a slide-by-slide way. So it's really, really difficult for people to see a piece of information on slide 1 and then relate that back to something that they see on slide 10 or slide 50 because they can't physically see those connections. It's very, very difficult to do. Now I want to ask you a quick question. I want you to think of 4 electrical items from your kitchen, and I'll just pause very quickly while you do that. Have you thought of them? I guess if you probably have. Now, whilst you were doing that, I'm going to make the assumption that most of you, in fact I'd probably go as far as to say all of you, didn't think of a bullet point list of items from your kitchen. So when I asked you to think of those items, in your head you didn't see a bullet point appear and then a microwave get mentioned and then a second bullet point where a toaster was mentioned, and so on and so on. I would like to bet money that the vast majority of you actually visualized your kitchen, saw those appliances and where they were, and that's how you then came up with the 4 items. Now the reason that happens is that the human brain has evolved over millions and millions of years to think in a visual way. There's a part of our brains that uses what we call spatial memory. And it's this spatial memory section of our brains that actually helps us get up for work in the morning without getting lost on the way. We can remember that journey to work and the journey home very, very easily. If we didn't have that spatial memory part of our brains, and if it hadn't evolved so well, we would all just be wandering around outside trying to figure out where our offices are and where our homes are. So it's a very, very simple thing, but it's for this reason that Prezi can be really, really effective. Because as you saw a second ago, we can actually take a scene like this and zoom into details, but then come back out to show you how those bits of information relate to everything else. So my very first reason why people should use Prezi is because you're completely free to move around and take your audience on a memorable journey. You will actually be able to tap into their spatial memory to help them remember more. So that's probably my number one, well, it is definitely my number one reason for using Prezi, being able to tap into spatial memory. So, you know, people might not remember certain words that I bring up on this presentation, but they'll probably remember this visual and where I took them to in that visual and where we came back to and how it all linked together. And that's why you remember movies and things like this, because the directors of those movies are very clever at taking you on a visual journey through certain scenes and certain places that have relevance. So that's point number one. Point number two why you should use Prezi is, again, quite straightforward, but gets missed quite a lot when people move across to using the Prezi software. So let's take a look at how PowerPoint is presented at the moment. We would normally have slide 1, and then at another click we'd move to slide 2, and then slide 3, and then slide 4, and so on. And we would keep going through and working in this way until we reach slide 100, you know, maybe even 200, it really depends. And by that point, most of our audience is going to be put to sleep, of course, because what we're asking them to do is to pay absolute attention to what's on screen, even if it's not relevant to them. Even if there's only one small part that they want to ask about and find out about, we're asking them to sit through all of this other stuff before we get there. And that's kind of unfair because we're all really short on time, so it doesn't really make sense to present in that way. So let's take a look at the Prezi way. Now, I've used the terminology slides on here again. Any of you who are already using Prezi will know that we don't use the term slides, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I've just put slide 1 to 4 on the screen there. Now, the beauty of Prezi is that we don't have to present in a linear way. We can actually present in a non-linear way. And what that means is I can ask you guys right now, what would you like to talk about first? Which of those slides would you like to look at first? And feel free to use the chat box right now and tell me which one you'd want to go to. And whichever answer comes in first, that's where I'm going to take my audience. So Prezi really enables this non-linear movement very, very easily. So I can see someone straight away has said slide 4. So I'm going to grab my mouse now. I'm going to click on slide 4. And we go straight there. Now you can see just below the title there's a few other bits of content. I can then click on those as well and zoom straight in. At any point now I can press the space bar on my keyboard and that will take us all the way back to the start, and I can ask you again, what would you like to talk about now? Slide 1, 2 or 3? Let's say slide 2, Oh, in fact, someone has just said 1, so I'm going to click on 1 instead. There we go, slide 1. We go straight there. We can start introducing this section. Then we can click on some content and drill down a bit further. And once we're done with that part of our presentation, we can hit the spacebar and come all the way back out. So this is non-linear presenting, and Prezi makes this really, really easy to do. I know that PowerPoint is changing quite a bit, of course, and that you can kind of present in that way, but it doesn't really give you the same effect, and it certainly isn't as easy to do as it is in Prezi. So the PowerPoint way is linear presenting. The non-linear presenting is very, very easily done with Prezi, and there's a whole heap of benefits that come out of presenting in that way. Instantly you have your audience even more engaged because you're asking them to tell you what they want to talk about. You know, we're so used to just getting our BlackBerries out, answering emails under our desk as an audience member, waiting for something to come on screen that looks interesting and then getting involved. But actually now we can get them involved from the very start. So that is going to make for a much more engaging and memorable conversation in the first place. And again, it's going to help them. If I go back to point 1, it's going to help them remember a lot more because they're doing the driving. One thing it will do as well, for any of you sales directors out there or people who own businesses and are extremely short for time, it should help you slash your presentation times in half. We have one particular customer of ours who's used this technique. Their presentation times have gone from 60 minutes down to 20 or 25. Because they're not covering everything, they're just focusing on specific areas that those prospects want to talk about. So if you want to get more out of your people and get them presenting in front of more prospects, working in this way can really help because it will slash their presentation time down by half very, very easily. Okay, so that's my second point. Why should I use Prezi? Because it helps me engage the audience from the very start, and by using non-linear presenting, I can actually just facilitate the conversation, have a natural conversation with my audience, but let them really do the driving. You know, any of the salespeople amongst us as well will see that as a really useful technique for actually helping them drill down into their prospects' needs and wants, and then giving them a really good sales solution at the end of it. There's all sorts of benefits around that, and I love that for Prezi. It's absolutely fantastic. So what's the third reason we should use Prezi? Well, Prezi's whole ethos is that they make ideas easier to share, and one way that they do that is by being a cloud-based piece of software. So I did mention at the start you can use Prezi completely offline. So if any of you have security questions around Prezi, then it's worth knowing you can work offline if you want to. But the fact that Prezi can be used online is absolutely fantastic for anyone in business because it makes sharing, collaboration, presenting, and controlling your own security around presentations very, very easy. So let's take a look at a few of these, and I'll just explain. I'll give you a sort of high-level overview of how these work. So sharing, first of all, if at any time I myself create a presentation, like the presentation you're looking at right now, I can actually send any of my team members here a link to view that presentation, so they can just click through it and give me some feedback. Or if I want some of our designers here in the office to actually make changes to it, I can send them an edit link. So I still control the master copy of this presentation, but I can have up to 30 people at a time linking in to that one presentation and either viewing it or actually making changes to it in real time. So it's a huge, huge time saver for us. We very often get very tight deadlines for design projects, so we don't have to stay up till the early hours of the morning and work through our weekends. We actually just get 3 or 4 designers linked into one Prezi presentation and all working together. So sharing and collaborating is very, very easy. Presenting, of course, is really what Prezi is all about. So I'm presenting to you now through GoToWebinar for reasons, I need to keep a track of everyone's names and addresses and things like that. But technically, we could have actually run this webinar completely through Prezi itself. The only problem that we would have had is that I think we would have had too many people to actually do that through Prezi. So you can present your Prezis online in real time to up to 30 people at once. If you're in education, there is an educational license you can get that will allow you to do that to up to 100 people at once. So in other words, I could have sent all of you out a link. You could click on that link in your email and all of your names would appear in my Prezi presentation, and I hit the present button and away we go. Okay? Unfortunately, my license only allows that for 30 people, and we've got nearly 100 on this webinar at the moment. So very, very easy to do, and of course Prezi standing up in front of people and presenting on stage is really what Prezi is all about as well. So you can take your Prezi, carry it around on a memory stick, run it from any PC or Mac. You don't need the Prezi software and you don't need an internet connection to do that. Privacy as well is, of course, crucial. Lots of our customers work in banking and finance, and there's all sorts of security issues and questions that they have around using Prezi. Now, my question to them is always, at the moment your people are using PowerPoint, and the answer I get back is, of course, yes. And when I say, how are you sharing those presentations, they normally say people are emailing them across to one another. Now, that's the most insecure way that you could possibly work with any kind of presentation, because you've got no control over that when it gets to the other end. And I know that's changing quite a lot in business right now. The good thing about Prezi, of course, is that we can create a presentation, we can host it online, keep it completely private in our Prezi account, but then we can send people a link to view it. Now, we can make sure as well very easily that only certain people can see that, and at any time as well we can actually revoke those rights. So we can change our privacy settings, we can remove people from the list of people that can actually access that presentation. Very, very easy to do. But Prezi makes all of that possible by being cloud-based. So my third reason as to why I should use Prezi is because it helps you to share, collaborate with your presentations very, very easily. And I've used the word presentations there, but people don't use Prezi just for presentations. They use it to help them mind map ideas or communicate new ideas to their teams. So that's another reason why sharing is really, really important, to helping your team members and colleagues get involved with your ideas and really understand what it is you're talking about, rather than just slapping it on some PowerPoint slides and hoping that they get what you mean. So just to summarize them for you, those are the 3 points that I want to talk about today. There are lots of other points and lots of other reasons why I think people should use Prezi, but we've only got a very short amount of time together, so I don't want to go on for hours and hours. I would definitely check out our blog on our website, thepresenter.com, that will have a lot more whys on there as well. So just to summarize for you, if we take a look at our audience's brains that you can see on the screen there at the moment, this is really what it's all about. Prezi can help people remember a lot more. So that's my number one reason for why people should use Prezi. And just to show what I mean again, we're tapping in to that spatial memory. So we can actually show people what we would call the big picture, and then we can zoom in on specific details, and we can come all the way back out so that people understand the relationships between content. That's what Prezi is all about, and if you are going to zoom and things like that, that's why you should do it. You should zoom in to let people focus on content and zoom back out to show them your big picture and help them understand the relationships between everything that's there. So that's my number one reason. You can tap into people's spatial memory. The second reason I talked about is the fact that it's very, very easy to present in a non-linear way. That's something Prezi makes very, very easy to do. It requires a little bit of thinking because obviously it's a very very different way to present. So you may find that just taking your standard PowerPoint slides that you've used for the last few years and trying to turn that into a non-linear presentation might give you a bit of a headache to start with, but without a doubt the benefits that you can get from that are entirely worth it. The third and final reason why I think people should use Prezi is because it's so easy to collaborate and share. And as I showed you a second ago, being able to send links to people to view your presentation online, being able to collaborate with people at exactly the same time and build a Prezi together is very, very easy. In fact, one thing I didn't mention on that point is once this session is finished, I would really recommend that everyone go to YouTube and just type in Prezi collaboration and have a look at some of the videos there that Prezi has published on that particular part of the software, because it will show you exactly what I mean. So those are my 3 points. We've gone through those really quickly, I know, and I wish we could have had a lot more time. But just to bring those up on screen again, so it's number 1, tap into people's spatial memory. Make sure you get the most out of that, because it's kind of the hidden gem, I think, that people just don't realize about why they should use Prezi. Number 2, present non-linear. I should probably add to that, non-linear is not going to work for every presentation. For instance, training, you will have to start from the beginning and work your way up. You have to build people's knowledge. Certainly for sales presentations and things, though, very, very easy to go non-linear. And collaborating and sharing. Those are my 3 reasons why I think everyone should use Prezi. I hope, I'd be interested to see your feedback when we're done, but I do hope that that has enlightened most of you, and maybe you just had no idea that those would be the reasons why you should use Prezi at all, and I'm kind of hoping that's the case anyway. So we've got a little bit of time now left to take some questions from you. A colleague of mine has been very busy typing away and replying to some of the questions that have been coming into the chat box already. So I'm going to ask him now to just highlight 3 or maybe 4 of the top questions that have come in so that I can answer them for you. And like I said, any that we don't have time for, I'm actually going to either put together another document to answer those, probably put them onto our blog as well. I think that would be the best thing to do, put them onto our blog and make sure those get answered. But also, once this presentation's finished, feel free to keep tweeting, keep asking me questions on Twitter. UK time now is half 4 in the afternoon. So I'm just going to be sat at home having a glass of wine and replying to tweets that come in from all of you. So that would be great to keep the conversation going. So let's have a look at the questions here then. The very first one is it possible to share my content, i.e. themes I made with our brand's colors and so on? Absolutely, yes it is. So I think it was Lisa who asked that question. So Lisa, yes. It is very, very easy to share a Prezi that you've set up as your company branded template. And in fact, whenever we run a training session, that is one of the things that we always make sure people have as their very next step. Make sure you have a branded template that will help you and your colleagues get started with Prezi very, very easily. So there's a couple of different ways you can share that. If you have a pro license, and if your colleagues have pro licenses, then you will be able to use the Prezi desktop software. Now what I would suggest is that if that is the case for you, use that desktop software and create a Prezi that has all of your colors, your colors, your logo, and everything else that you want, maybe some stock imagery in it, some stock video. Set that up just as one Prezi and call it your company name Prezi template version 1 or whatever your naming scheme might be, and then just email that Prezi desktop file out to everyone else, or keep it in a shared folder that everyone else can access. That would without a doubt be the easiest way of doing that. And just make sure you've got a process in place that everyone knows whenever I start a new Prezi, this is where I need to go and where I need to start from. Now that would be the first way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to actually purchase what Prezi calls on its website the team license. So you can actually buy a group of licenses from Prezi. You would become the administrator of those licenses, so you can manage them very easily. And what you can actually request from Prezi is a branded template. I think the cost for that is around $400 or maybe $450 US dollars. So, it doesn't break the bank at all. What Prezi will do for you, though, is they will create the template for you. So all of your colors, fonts, logo, everything else will be there. And they will then apply it to every single license within your group. So what that means is you don't have to do any of that legwork that I mentioned in that very first example. And as soon as anyone in your business opens Prezi, all your branding is going to be there. So the first option is if you want to do it yourself without spending any money. If you want to spend a few $100s, ask Prezi to do that for you. We can help you out with that as well if you need someone to help you manage that process. And that's really the way of making sure everyone is going to have everything in place branding-wise. So hopefully that's answered that for you. I don't want to spend too long on just the one question, but I will come back to it if we need to. Okay, let's have a look at some other questions. I'm just going to try and find my questions panel because it's disappeared from me. Here we go. Okay, another question that's come in is, do you know if Prezi is working on making custom fonts easier to implement? That is a very good question. One, in fact, I wish I knew the answer to. Even though I'm one of Prezi's official experts and I do get a real insight as to where the product is going, that is one thing that Prezi has been quite elusive on. I'm not sure if or when that is going to happen. And at the moment, the only way to get your own corporate fonts into Prezi is by doing what I said a second ago, and that's actually requesting that they build a Prezi template for you, and that costs around $450 US dollars. So I'm afraid I'm unable to answer that, but hopefully it's given you a bit of an insight. I would like to think that with the amount of investment Prezi has got recently, that will be one of the areas that they will look to improve, but please don't hold me to that. Okay, I'm just going to have a look at some of the other questions that have come in and see if I can answer some of these. Let's have a look. Someone has said, I think this is when I was talking at part of the presentation earlier, would we then make updates to the master presentation? So this is talking about when I was talking about collaborating a second ago. Prezi makes it very easy to collaborate and share your presentations by just sending a link to people, basically, rather than sending files. So the question that's been asked there by Julie is, would you then make updates to the master presentation? And the answer is absolutely yes, Julie. If you've sent out a link to a presentation to maybe a customer of yours, you can update that at any time. And whenever they view it, they will always see those updates. So it's a really, really good way of working because, one of your customers might have that link to the presentation for quite a while. And if you know they're not looking at it straight away, go in, make some updates, make some changes, add some new stuff in, and they won't be any the wiser. Okay, they won't be able to see that you've made changes or anything like that. What they will see is the latest version. And in fact, no matter how many people have that link, they will all see the latest version that you work on. Okay, so hopefully that's answered that question for you. So that's pretty much all we have time for, which is bang on 45 minutes that we had planned for today's session. So just on the screen there at the moment, I've just brought up a little bit more information for you. If you're completely convinced now that Prezi is the way to go, and I'm really hoping that you are, then do by all means get in touch with us. We are one of Prezi's official experts, so we do really know what we're talking about and what we're doing. We offer Prezi design, and when I say design, it could be a one-off presentation that you're doing at a conference or an event or a sales tender. But we also offer Prezi template design. So if you want to get your team started, if you want all your branding in place, that's something we can do for you as well. And off the back of that, we can actually come in and train you and your business on how to use Prezi and how to use that template design that we've put in place. Another thing that we offer is Prezi support. So if you really want to get going with Prezi and you want to make sure that you can always have a virtual Prezi expert at the end of the phone, no matter where you are in the world, then a Prezi support contract is something we can help you out with. And we have quite a few customers that are, always tapping into us for a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of critique on Prezis that they're putting together, and also just a little bit of top-up training here or there whenever Prezi releases new features. So whatever your requirement with Prezi, we are here to help. We are based in the UK, but we work globally. If there's anything you want to ask us about, you can email us directly on info@thepresenter.com. But please keep the conversation going on Twitter. I really look forward to hearing more from you later on this evening. And thanks very much for being here on time. I hope you found it an enjoyable session. So I'm going to wrap things up now and wish you a good day and hopefully see you on our very next Prezi webinar. So thanks very much, guys, and take care. Speak to you soon.